its staff, management, or sponsors. Welcome to the Mick Bazzuly Show, brought to you by RP Summit, putting money in businesses' pockets for 20 years. Visit rpsummit.com. Now, here's Mick.
12:01 on a wet and wild Wednesday here in Fort Lauderdale. I mean, it's been raining. Unbelievable, but it's not raining here in the studio. And we got a great show lined up for you today. Take you up to about 1 o'clock. And we're looking forward to talking about the stock market. You know, so much has been said about the marijuana industry. I mean, it's all over the front pages here in South Florida. And I'm sure it is in all the states right now. You know, do we legalize it completely? What do we do? The benefits versus the subtraction, taking the profit away from the cartel. But not enough's been said about the ancillary businesses, the business of the benefit without the THC. And there's a company out there right now, okay, potnetwork.com. Go ahead and visit it, potnetwork.com. That's really shaking Wall Street up. It's got great management. It's brought in a fellow that, I got to tell you, well-traveled, 50 years in many industries, was part of President Nixon's team, which basically opened up China. Because China was, unlike anything else, 20-some-odd years, no information coming out. We had no idea what was going over there. This gentleman was one of the I guess the founders of arranging for President Nixon to go over there and really set the record. Probably the most significant event of the second half of the 20th century was opening up China, which basically changed the world. And we're going to interview him. He's taking the helm over at Pot Network, their symbol POTN. And without further ado, I want to bring on Mr. Bruce Barren. Bruce, how are you, sir?
Good, Mick. The only difference between where I am right now and where you are, it's not raining. So what can I tell you?
we got the heat to look forward to here in South Florida. It's just unbelievable, you know. But I'd rather suffer with the heat than I would with the cold of the Northeast any day of the week. You know, I could probably.
I would agree with that 100%. And now we're going to make liquid sunshine.
There you go. You know, I could probably do two shows with you. We got your picture up on the screen. You know, you're well-traveled, 50 years. Nobody knows the Orient. You've been over there. You look at open up those markets again. But you've taken over Pot Network, POTN, the symbol. And I got to say, the sales have been just astonishing.
Well, what's interesting here is that this is a very market-driven company. Unlike anybody else, they're really focused on the top, but more importantly, the bottom line, which is critical in any business. The objective is get sales, make a good gross margin, but more importantly, drive home a positive cash flow.
Yeah, your career, you've operated, you've been a consultant to many private and public companies over your vast career, which is spanning close to 50 years. And now you were talking to me the other day, just in the sales in April, of breaking the $1 million plateau in sales in April is just phenomenal growth. How do you control it though? You know, that's the problem. A lot of companies, they outrun their supply lines. I know you got a pretty good hold on this.
Well, the company has its own manufacturing capability, which is very, very important. So it can keep pace with the supply requirements and has tremendous capacity to expand its manufacturing capabilities so that the forecast for the next couple of years can easily be met.
Right. You have you also not only doing a business through the website, which is extensive. You got a great product line on potnetwork.com. But you're also in, 10,000 retail locations now?
10,000 retail locations, but the direction in order to keep the growth in the bottom line is e-commerce, the Internet.
That affords the biggest, biggest profit margin. You don't have the job rackers going out there, you know, to service these retail organizations and these stores. And, you know, it makes complete sense. And you mentioned something about the average ticket per sale online versus in the stores.
Well, the average ticket online is higher, but the more important factor is this company has the right focus. It's not only focusing on distribution outlets. It's got 10,000 of the estimated 50,000 already under its belt. But more importantly is its average location sales are running about $1,000 a year, which is low. So they got plenty of expansion there, and their average ticket price is about $60. So there's a lot of room for internal growth without having to go out and more expensively build that distribution system. So what makes this company unique is that its first focus is sell the product at a good cash margin, and they take no risk because all their sales are prepaid. Unbelievable. So they've eliminated the whole cost of accounts receivable collection.
That's amazing. You know, I was thinking about, what we spoke about 1.7 billion people living in China, and there's no restrictions on this because, again, it does not contain the THC, which is the derivative in the marijuana product itself, which gets you high. So this can basically be sold just about anywhere.
Well, it's first important in the United States because it gives you national distribution in all 50 states. And then when you start to build that, then you look overseas, and then the natural market for expansion is because it's a natural product is China, and then after China comes India. So they are two major potential markets for this company.
We also spoke that this could be a patentable product, but you elected not to go that route.
Well, I think the best way to go with the company is use the Coca-Cola approach. Have a strong proprietary identity, no need for patent. Why tell the people what the secret sauce is?
Mm-hmm. And right now you have a secret sauce. Now you broke the $1 million plateau in April. How were May sales? Have you got a finger on that in May, and what do you project for, as far as June and onward?
Well, the company right now is the first quarter they did $1.8 million, which is a tremendous growth over last year. April and May, it's been announced, which are million-plus months. It's running at an annual rate of somewhere around 10 to 12 million, although the internal forecast is 8.3 million, as was recently announced in a research report by See-Through Equities.
Mm-hmm. They also put a target price. There's been a target price of 25 to 26 cents a share. I've seen it as high as 29 cents a share. It's so hard to say, let's predict, because nobody has a crystal ball. The market goes where it goes. But you've seen significant growth as far as you're trading 10 to 12, 14 million shares a day. You're up about 100% from where you were last time this month, and you seem to be driving. You got to remember, this is basically a new company. How long has this company been in existence as a public entity?
Well, the time clock starts about the first of the year when they backed into a public shell in order to gain some liquidity for the shareholder base. And what's also nice about this company is that there's some 5,000 shareholders out there, which means I've got the potential for a very liquid market, the potential for a good, substantial increase in market value.
What about growing to perhaps the bulletin board or even the NASDAQ down the line? What do you see the forecast on that? Because you've taken companies and you basically restructured them throughout your career. I don't know. It's just too many companies to count, according to your resume and from what I've heard in the street. You've been around a while. How do you project, and do you see this thing moving to a higher exchange somewhere in the near future?
Absolutely. The first item on the agenda, though, is let's get the historical statements independently certified and then gradually move it up as the company continues to grow, because when you move it up, you get better recognition of what they call the true market value of a company. Mm-hmm. In this particular case, this industry, which is amazing, is that more than half the companies are losing money in the industry, and yet it's valued at somewhere between 80 and 100 times revenue.
Yeah, so you see all these challenges ahead of you, and you do have the background and the experience, of course, to control it. You're still developing your management team. You're still bringing in people, key people from the industry and outside of the industry, helping you with the branding of this product. How's that going?
Well, I think it's going, it's right on target, as the saying goes. The one thing this company has is a very good expertise in marketing. Now it's in the process of professionalizing itself, and that's why we're here.
Yeah, well, it seems you're doing a great job. We're on with Bruce Barren, who's handling Pot Network right now. He's building it up. You can see it under the symbol of POTN, and it's trading very healthy. I mean, 5,000 shareholders. You've just about doubled your shareholder base in the last 6-8 weeks.
Absolutely. When they started, the shareholder base was just over 2,000, so that's performing nicely. But the important point of having a good shareholder base is shareholder liquidity, so that when you buy a stock, you've got people out there that are anxious to buy more.
Yeah, I could see that already. I could see, I cruise the boards, and I don't find any negativity from any of the shareholders out there. Everybody seems to be optimistic. Many of your shareholders also are raving about the gummy bears. I guess that's must be a top seller over there.
Well, let me put it this way. It's better than the competition who's pushing chewing gum, which is a nuisance unto itself. But gummy bears are, let's put it this way, the public likes something that's chewable, soft, and digestible, and goes through your system. And that's what's a very strong positive from a...
You know what they remind me of? The old Jubies that we used to get in the movie theaters back in the day, where they sell you a box of them. There's like, the box weighs about 60 pounds, and it's like $300 in the movie theater. I don't know if you ever went to the concessions in a movie theater. It should be outlawed because you can buy a steak for less money. But that's what the gummy bears remind me of. Real chewy, tasty, especially, I don't know why anybody would make any other flavor than the wild cherry. Seems everybody loves them. And I heard that's your biggest seller right now.
Back when I was growing up, it was the licorice, the black licorice.
Yeah.
The red cherry.
The red licorice is the one I like. I'm afraid to eat it now. It's like chewing plastic. And yet, it was such a big seller when we were growing up. Things were simpler back then. I miss it.
Well, it was one of the hot items in the concession counters in the movies. Right?
Yeah, right. That was a long.
Watch out, Mick. You're going to date yourself here when you start talking about
that's all right.
Like
anyway, you can't find the good man under 60 today, like they said in what was that movie Jaws when Quint said that. How do you control growth of a company that's? I mean, basically, it's on fire. I mean, let's face it. Not only the shareholders jumping in on it, it's probably one of the hottest industries, if not the hottest, probably in the United States right now, which is the marijuana industry and the ancillary products that support the marijuana industry, the health benefits from having this. I mean, just so many diseases it can work on. How do you put your finger on that?
Well, typically in a company that's growing, you have a half a dozen hot points. And the first and most important is cash flow. Can you operate a business that I don't need to depend on outside cash in order to grow the business? This company has substantial net profit margins when net, to me, is pre-tax, not operating profit. So that it can self-sustain its own growth, which is, say, unusuality in a growing business. But the next thing you look at is how many locations you have, and do you have vulnerability from any single customer? The answer here is absolutely not. I've got 10,000 locations. I've got the ability to expand those locations because there's 50,000 of those potential locations, which means currently I only have a 20% penetration. And then you look at the 10,000 and you say, wow, I'm only doing $1,000 a year, which is very insignificant when it comes to the capability of the individual locations. And then the average ticket price is only $60, which it could be considerably higher. So I've got room in all three categories of my marketing plan. But most importantly is my top line, which is revenue, is being focused, met, and even exceeded. So This year, the forecast per the recent research report that was put out by See-Through Equity is 8.3 million. We're on target to exceed that right now. So
yeah,
that's the way to do it.
We talked about that. I'd rather say 8.3 and do 15 rather than say 8.3 and do 6. You know, as far as the targets. And you talked about your experience with another public company where for 56 quarters you underestimated, and you always, for 56 straight quarters, you earned more than your projections were.
Well, that was the granddaddy, as we call it. That was John Connolly's Crown, Cork, and Seal out of Philadelphia, and he was a master, to say the least, at continual growth and earnings per share. Matter of fact, he had some 60-plus quarters of positive growth when he was running Crown Cork, which is now called Crown Holdings.
That's about 15 years' worth of growth, you know, and steadiness. You know, it's hard to find that today, you know, especially, you know, in a pink sheet company. I don't project that you're going to be on the pink sheets much longer. It looks like you're getting ready to break out maybe after the first of the year when you start out new. I mean, you know, a new year, new quarter, new positive growth. You're going to have the numbers. You basically self-fund. You don't have any financing, no debt, nothing pressing you. It's basically self-funding out of profits and keeping pushing it ahead.
Yeah, well, you have to remember, though, this is a brand-new company in reality. And you need 2 years of certified statements to upgrade to the next level of an exchange. So that when we go through this current year, which will be the first certification, and if we do last year, which is really the starting point, we should be in a position somewhere in the next year or two to start the upgrade process.
Right. We're on with Bruce Barren, potnetwork.com. POTN is the symbol. And take a long look at this company because it seems to be knocking them dead. You're trading very healthy, and that's got to be a pleasant surprise to see, you know, just people buying and selling, and it's always in the green. This company seems to be green every day.
Well, I think the important point is if you buy shares in this company, which is also a critical monitoring element, is there's enough liquidity out there so that if I say the stock goes up 25%, I can clip it, get my profits, and either stay long or go on to another opportunity. But I think in this case, since this company's performing well and it looks like the future of this industry is unbelievable, Forbes magazine predicts the industry over the next 5 years to grow at 700%. So there's plenty of room for this company to move up, and at the same time, it's already outperforming its comparative companies.
You're beginning to brand yourself, too. The name recognition. I'd imagine that domain, potnetwork.com, has got to be valued about $5 or $10 million just in the name itself.
Well, that's part of the valuation process. The critical point there is that this company has both liquid assets, earning performance, and it's building its brand value on a daily basis.
Yeah, and it's got great management and leadership, and you're pretty accustomed to coming into a company and just structuring it so it can stand on its own down the line, which is really important. You know, most of these companies, like I said earlier, they'll outrun their supply line, and at the end of the day, they end up going out and getting financing from some crooked hedge fund or a hedge fund that basically massacres the stock price. You don't do any of that. I mean, you know, I can't find any evidence of it, and I haven't seen any in the past.
Well, you've hit on a very important point, is that when you seek capital, be very careful of the terms of capital. In this particular case, the company doesn't need capital, so it doesn't have to worry about that. It has more than sufficient cash flow. The current research report shows that the net margin, and when I talk net margin, I talk pre-tax, is running at 7%, but more importantly, that should grow to the 12 to 15% range, which is a good credential as far as management is doing. They're focused where they should be focused. Bottom line management, build the brand, expand the locations, and in turn drive revenue. that is the perfect formula for success.
You said it all right there. And with branding, it was estimated that branding a product today, okay, costs between $25 and $40 million to brand it. And you seem to be branding it in a grassroots way.
Well, I think that your estimate might be low on the cost of branding, but the critical point, yes. I mean, these people know how to do things the economical way, which is important. They treat public money as their own money. As we say in the business, they're part of the caboose of a train. The public shareholders can get in and get out anytime they want. The insiders can't. They're locked in, and anytime they would sell, the public knows about it.
Yeah.
But they're the last to get out of a stock, which means a stock has typically, in this particular case, a good long-term capability.
Well, you're focused on the long term anyway. This company is from what I see, is a long term player. You know, especially with sales growing. We don't know where it'll be in 12 months, but you haven't taken a backwards step yet. So I don't think there's going to be any really. You might hit a bump in the road, but you're still going to push forward with this thing, as far as I could tell. And I've seen them come and go. You know, you got the right market, you got the right leadership and management at the helm, and you know there's a tremendous market.
Well, I think equally important to that, Mick, is that you've got the right focus, which is build shareholder value. So often these companies start out and the insiders run, make their money, and get out. In this particular case, there's no reason for that, because when you look at the Forbes predictions of the industry, why should I jump out when I'm at 200% growth in the industry when I have a capability of 700% over the next 5 years?
Right. And a lot of money's been going into this industry across the board. I mean, you know, you look at it, you look at the marijuana base and how something like this without the THC has beneficial use. I mean, it's not like you're just eating a sugar-coated candy. This thing does help. It's healthy. Every study shows that. It's hard to argue with that fact. You know, and your application, it's more than just a trace of the good qualities of marijuana in your product. You really have a good dosage in there.
Well, not only a good dosage, but here again, you've got double benefits. I've got personal taste benefits, but equal to that, I've got good medical type benefits where it can soften the pain or the effects of diseases like rheumatism and arthritis and what have you. That's important. So it has a good social benefit besides the personal benefit in the product, which is extremely important when it comes to looking at the longevity of a product.
Yeah, well, longevity. You know, this product's going to outlive most of the people who are using it, you know, because the population's getting older and they're looking for something other than, let's face it, we have an opioid epidemic in the country right now, and people are getting back to the basics, you know, get away from that opioid, the oxycodons and all the other things, you know, for rheumatoid arthritis, your back aches. You know, baby boomers, we're getting older now. We're starting to feel all those aches from our 20s and 30s. They're starting to catch up with us. I know a lot of people, you know, taking therapy using marijuana. You know, myself personally, you know, but I don't. I've been fortunate. You know, the aches and pains I have, I've learned to live with them. But I can see the benefit only increasing over the years. You know, as the population ages.
And it's a natural product, which is means it's okay to put into your body, which is very, very critical when it comes to the intake, so that no matter what your physical condition, it won't harm the other medicines that are going into the body.
Well, it's been great talking about this. It's POTN, potnetwork.com. Bruce, you're doing a great job over there, the team. You know, we're looking forward to bringing you back on the show and talking about the progress, because it seems that it changes over the, you know, every night there's something else, you know, coming out on Pot Network. It's just a solid little company, you know, that has a lot of room for growth.
Well, what's interesting here is, as we say in New York, Mick, is that there is no bridge that this company can't cross at this time. So the future looks very bright for the industry. It looks bright for the company. It looks bright for its management team. and most importantly is it's performing on a daily basis, and the performance is increasing every day.
Yeah,
So
well,
it's not a question where I did $1 million and next month I do 500. No, I did $1 million, and management focus is I want to do $1.1 million the next month. I want to do $1.2 million the month after that, et cetera, et cetera. That's where the shareholders want to make sure that management is focused. Build my value. Don't just build it for the short term, but build it for the long term.
Boy, I tell you, you got a good formula. Bruce, I want to thank you for coming on the show. Okay, look forward to seeing you on the show again, probably in the near future, maybe when the earnings come out sometime in July or early August, and come on and back, and we'll chart the progress.
Well, the only thing I can say to you today, Mick, is enjoy your rain while I enjoy my sunshine.
throw a rock at me, why don't you? Mr. Bruce Barren from Pot Network. We're going to go to a break, come back. POTN, watch for this stock. Ladies and gentlemen, do your due diligence, but I'm going to tell you what, great industry. Come back in about 2 minutes, and we'll be right back at you. This is the Mixter. Attention, doctors, car lots. I don't care what type of business you're in. Let's face it, you all need traffic. And nobody drives traffic, and I'm talking about traffic that brings you dollars, than RP Summit and rpsummit.com. Yep, they're here now in South Florida. They've taken over the tri-state area, New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia. Everybody knows who RP Summit is, because RP Summit drives you traffic. Let's face it, if you give me $1 on a Monday, and I give you back $4 on a Wednesday, the only thing you should be thinking about is giving me more dollars. Well, that's what RP Summit does. They are the best in the business at driving real traffic to your website or to your business. Because let's face it, it's all about getting bodies, getting people to find you. What good is having a website if nobody knows where you are? Let's face it. I mean, what are they just going to pull it out of the air? Of course not. Well, RP Summit's been driving people to businesses now for over 20 years and successful. And the fact is, once you hire them, you're never going to fire them. I suggest you look at rpsummit.com or give them a call for a free consultation at 856-424-7222. That's rpsummit.com. They will drive traffic like you've never seen before. And believe me, once you get them, you'll never get rid of them. You'll say, why didn't I do this before? It's simple. You didn't know about them, but now you do, so there's no excuse. Pick up a phone, 856-424-7222. rpsummit.com, the best in the business. Hurricane season's upon us here in South Florida, and the best way to protect your home is with Best Masonry Impact Windows. That's right. Beautify your home. Get rid of those ugly jalousie windows, and at a price you can afford. Give them a call today, Best Masonry and Impact Windows at 954-464-0296. They'll give you the best price. Call everybody else, but call Best Masonry Impact Windows and Doors for the best price. Beautify your home, make it safe and sound, get through the hurricane season, and add value to your house. And let's face it, right now, the hurricane season's drawing down on us, and we can really get some bad weather here in South Florida. You want to give yourself all the options. Again, Best Masonry Impact Windows, 954-464-0296. Give old Dino a call, and he'll set you up right away.
Great party, huh, guys?
Yeah, it is. So
great.
Much fun.
Uh-huh. If I do say so.
That was one heck of an interview, huh, Pot Network? We're really knocking them dead here on a wet and wild Wednesday here in Fort Lauderdale. My next company coming up, now this one is really, it's cutting edge. You know, everybody laughed at Amazon. They had 11% sales only 8 years ago. Now 68% of the people are shopping on Amazon. Every present I got this year around the holidays from my kids up north came down, by Amazon. I mean, shopping online, putting all the sticks and bricks out of business. Sears is closing, Target's closing, Kmart's closing. And eventually, let's face it, you go to a doctor, you sit there for 2 hours. I don't know of any other industry in the world where you got a 9 o'clock appointment and the doctor sees you at 11:15. I mean, it happens all the time, and really it's a deterrent from going to a doctor. And half the time, the doctor sees you for 3 minutes. It's something he could have did at home, okay, like Teledoc. Well, over here, we got Medical Innovations Holding, which is an online doctor's visit. So many different ways a doctor can see it. Increases your back in the 70s and 80s, we talked about preventive medicine. Everything was preventive medicine. Okay, today, you just don't hear that anymore. People don't want to go to the doctor on a regular basis. But a doctor could go ahead and come into your household via your computer or whichever device you're using and really get a visit in. I mean, they can monitor you now. There's a lot to it. And we're going to talk about that. Medical Innovations Holdings, their symbol is MIHI. They're trading at around $1.60 to $2.20. Excellent company. And we're going to go with Mr. Jake Sanchez, the CEO of Medical Innovations. Jake, how are you, sir?
Mick, doing good. How are you, sir?
Very good, very good. You know, I've been following your company now for, about a month and a half. I see it's starting to grow. And we were talking about that the other day. You know, you got a company, what is it, TDOC? It's hovering around $32 a share. And it seems that you got a little bit more going for you over here with it. You know, we've already identified, listen, the baby boomers, you laugh, but, they're in their 60s and 70s now, late 50s at best if you're born in the 60s. I think the baby boom generation was from 1945 to 1962. It's the largest aging population here in the United States, and it seems that you're falling right into a good niche.
Well, and we have, I think, Mick, and I think there's two ends of the spectrum there. Not only do we have the baby boomers that are aging and need more and more health care, as most people understand, the health care issue is that the older you get, the more care you need and the more cost there is. So it's heavily weighted towards the elderly. But don't forget, we also have a young population coming up that's based on a different culture than the baby boomers, which is taking control, which is consumer-driven, and they're more used to interactive media and the technology today. So we actually get the benefit from both sides, those aging that are going to require our services and those that are coming up that see it as a matter of day-to-day.
Yeah, it is their generation, and I think that's what's really exploded. They were the first really to go to online shopping. Everybody was afraid to use their debit card. The lines got more secure and things of that nature. And now look at it today. It's putting everybody out of business.
Yes, and when we got into this, you mentioned Teledoc. What I love about Teledoc is they kind of set the stage. This company is, if you watch them, they're growing significantly. I think their stock, I think you mentioned, is like $33, $34 a share. Their market cap's about $1.8 billion. Now, what that says is that there's a huge opportunity in telemedicine. When you have an industry that pretty much represents about 25 of the gross domestic product of the United States, there's a lot of opportunity to just kind of nibble at the edges and take advantage of it. Teledoc has certainly done that. However, their model is very different than ours because not only do you see their revenue growing, but if you look at their net income, it continues to grow at a loss. They just haven't been able to come out of this continual loss and erosion of profit. And I suspect, and again, I'm not the insider there, but given what we're doing, I suspect that model is going to have a hard time turning around.
They're always in the red.
A different way.
They've been in the red since day one.
It's compounding in the red, Mick. I think if you look at their numbers, it's not just incrementally. It is getting, the more volume they get, the more the losses happen. And again, I think it's a model issue on how they've chosen to monetize it versus what MIHI is doing.
Yeah. It seems that you have a grip on it. You're going through a slow and steady process of growth. You're trying to brand your product now, and I've noticed you've made a lot of progress in that. You've grown your shareholder base, although the company trades lightly right now. But what do you see in the future as far as the growth goes to shareholder value?
Well, the shareholder value, I think we're doing a pretty good job, taking it from when we started this thing. Remember, we just started back April, even though MIHI has been traded. We took over the company through a reverse merger and put it into play as a telemedicine company. But unlike the Teledocs of the world, telemedicine is our center of the universe, but it is only one of the different avenues of revenue that we're looking at to enhance value. Now, because our model lays it out a little differently, we will be enjoying a population of doctors, a population of patients. We'll have them tied on through our mobile apps as well as our electronic medical record apps online. And once we have this population of different patients and users, there's other services that they require that are just natural to the medical process, which is things like lab services. Nutraceuticals is a big deal. We're in the process right now, Mick, of acquiring a nutraceutical company for several different reasons. Again, I don't want to beat up Big Pharma, but there is a huge concern about the effects of pharmaceutical medicine on people's bodies and their livelihoods. And I think there's been some articles written out there where
more than a few
they're not effective.
Mm-hmm. More than a few. It seems that the general public is turning on pharmaceutical companies right now. Everybody's been overprescribed, and you got so many people dependent upon these drugs, nobody wants to take them anymore.
That's right, and I think we're moving to a culture of more self-awareness, right? Because if you notice back in the last year or so, the products like the Fitbit, for example, have been one of the most popular in the world, one of the most downloaded apps, I believe, at Christmas at one time, because people are trying to take control, and the whole healthcare industry is shifting to where the patient is really in control and is liable for their own care. And we're seeing an uptick on the nutraceuticals, the self-awareness market, the wellness market. We're seeing people looking at alternatives. If you take a look at the CBD market, cannabis-infused products.
Right.
A few years ago, it was zero.
Yeah, we
about that. And now it's everywhere, and people are, not just U.S., globally. And they're seeing the results of giving this kind of medication to even children.
Yeah, I know.
That have seizures, that have all kinds of complicated problems, and the research is just getting started. So we see this, again, as a very exciting avenue to capitalize on for our patients as well as, our shareholders.
Nutraceuticals right now are exploding in growth, whereas, like I said earlier, you can look at studies. You turn on the news at night, and you hear nothing but abuse of oxycodone, of painkillers, of things of that nature. How many people more have to die on a weekly basis from this stuff, from overdosing, from mixing different types? This stuff is deadly, and we're at epidemic proportion right now as far as people ODing, in plain English, on stuff that they really didn't need to be taken. They could have did it a different way. It's just that they're bombarded with this stuff, and it's really got to stop. And I think there's legislation right now. I know the president had signed some only a couple of weeks ago to try and put a noose around this and stop it, because good people are dying, and it doesn't have to be that way. I take the nutraceutical way myself. Myself, I'd rather go ahead and take something that's of nutraceutical value than go out and get a doctor to prescribe me something for pain or something along those lines. Alternative lifestyle medicine, I call it.
Yeah, and I think that's valid, and we're finding an explosion of that, as well as an explosion of medical information on the internet. And again, I think the overriding issue is education, and making yourself aware of what your alternatives are. And it's no longer the doctor is the center of the universe. The patient is the center of the universe now. And now we look at ways to serve that patient, to provide the simple things that we take for granted that are actually written in our Declaration of Independence and Constitution, which is, the pursuit of happiness. And you cannot pursue happiness if you're sick.
Right.
So we want to make sure that, and this gets into kind of the things that we do in our telemedicine model in our business, which is a little different than the ones that you see out there, because we do believe that a continuum of care is essential to avoid these kinds of things that you're speaking about, where people are over-medicated. They're taking multiple medications that nobody really understands the effects of them combined.
Long-term.
And it's long-term, absolutely. And so if we can provide electronic medical records online, on their phones, where doctors can readily access that information, and because we work with rural doctors, and this is an interesting segue, I think, Mick, because the rural docs are doing the best they can with what they have, trying to serve an aging population. And what we've discovered is that there's about 60 to 80 million United States citizens living in what they call medically underserved areas. Now, these are deserts, particularly, but these are deserts of lack of health care and rural hospitals and specialists. And so we looked at this and said, geez, is this a place we can go to, one, create value for our shareholders, right? Try to generate the revenue and the profiles that we need. And second, can we really serve a market and bring quality service to them from a remote location using virtual technology? And that was kind of the thinking behind this. And rural America, as you know, has an aging population. Those individuals tend to have Medicare as their primary insurance choice. They have 3 to 4 chronic illnesses that they are dealing with, and the specialist may be 50 to 100 miles away, where they have to literally drive or find someone to help them to get a ride.
You can't exactly call Uber out there, and I understand
exactly
that,
right.
100%. They've been turning around over here in South Florida. I know some people have pacemakers. And I guess telemedicine applies to that, because that pacemaker is monitored by a specialist somewhere. So if it malfunctions, they're notified immediately, and they tell the people to come in immediately, or call 911. So telemedicine's been around forever. But
that's correct. And I think the advent of technology, in other words, by that I mean the proliferation of it, the power of it, and while it brings the cost down, technology is one of those few industries that you can get more for less,
right,
year over year over year. And not only do you get more for less, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So it provides an opportunity now to put together equipment, really off the shelf, if you will, that can now serve these individuals in remote areas. So you mentioned remote diagnostics, for example. That does fall under the telemedicine umbrella. And think about those patients that not just have pacemakers, but even the elderly that aren't ambulatory. And you have their kids that are living in different cities that themselves have a full life, and they're trying to care for their aging parent, their aging grandparent. Boy, wouldn't it be nice if they could remotely see and what they're doing and get alerts that they're moving around and that they've opened up the refrigerator and that they've actually eaten something and people are coming into their home. This can change the way we approach medicine and the care of people. It can be continual from the time they're born to the time they die. It doesn't have to be by exception, where you only go when you're sick.
That's true.
That is what we're trying to do.
That's true. We're on with Jake Sanchez. We're on with Jake Sanchez here on Medical Innovations Holdings. Okay, their symbol is MIHI. It's funny you should say something like that. I remember years ago, this technology has been around, but it's like any other technology. It's the improvement on it constantly, consistently. Years ago, people used to wear a sleeve on their arm, and the doctor would be aware of your heartbeat, whether or not you had a murmur. It would also take your blood pressure. It would give all your vital signs, and they call them vital signs because they're really a telltale sign of whether or not you're healthy or not. And if there's any irregularity in your heartbeat, the doctor would be aware of that. It seems you only get one heart, and when it goes into fibrillation, you're gone.
That's right. And I think, Mick, to kind of add to that, there's another area that needs to move along with the technology, and it usually lags the technology, which is the laws. We always hear this, that laws are always behind. The technology kind of proliferates faster than the laws can catch up. Mm-hmm. And in this case, you have to make sure that the laws are in place to allow the telemedicine encounters to happen. And there's been a lot of obstacles. One of the big obstacles, for example, is licenses, licensure of doctors. If you could come out of Harvard Medical, top of your class, move to whatever state, get your license in that state, and guess what? You're not allowed to practice anywhere else.
Yeah, that's true too. I mean, same thing with law.
That is very interesting to me, because if you go south of the border, for example, in Mexico, you go to their top medical schools, you get a national license because you're qualified as a doctor to practice, whether it be Ohio or Mississippi, right?
Right, exactly.
So this is starting to change, which really would help the telemedicine environment to allow me to have a doctor in Georgia speak to a patient in California. Right now, you can't do that. Mm-hmm. So you have to have the doctor licensed in the state that the patient is.
Well, I'm pretty sure that they're going to adjust. Let's face it, technology is so far ahead of what the laws are. It takes a while for in Washington to catch up with it. I mean, we're really running on 20th century time up there. Hmm?
That's right, Mick. And it's also the states, because at the end of the day, states enact the federal Medicare laws, right? Mm-hmm. They have their own state versions. And recently, in the state of Texas, for example, in order to perform telemedicine, the first encounter, in other words, the first time I see you as a patient, I have to see you in person. Well, mm-hmm. That's a major stumbling block to why we want telemedicine. Mm-hmm. That law has now been removed. Mm-hmm. Okay? So these are the kinds of things I'm talking about, as well as laws like parity. Mm-hmm. Parity laws are designed to pay a provider that has a brick-and-mortar office the same as a telemedicine doc, to encourage its use, because they're finding that, one, you have quality care, two, you can get access, which is difficult in these rural areas, and three, if we can catch the chronic disease early, we have enough chance to offset it and thereby drive down the cost. Right? That's what it's all about, is cost.
The way I see it, Jake, is that one day, okay, you're always going to have to go to the doctor. You're going to have to get blood work right now until they figure out how they're going to do that. But as far as monitoring your blood pressure, your health, your heart, things of that nature, I honestly think that, telemedicine is the wave of the future, because I seen what, I didn't think Amazon would work. I was one of the few people, and I don't think it would be accepted. And this was when it first began. I thought people would always want to go to the store, physically walk into Sears or Kmart or any place else. And now we see Sears closing 1,000 stores, Kmart closing I don't know how many, Target, because everybody's shopping online. And medicine and nutraceuticals are no different. I mean, you don't need a prescription to buy something to help you with your hormones or with your testosterone. I mean, they got some stuff out there that's safe and it works. Let's face it.
That's right. It works. And what our idea is, Mick, is to buy into that marketplace. And like as I mentioned earlier, we are in the process of closing on a nutraceutical company that has its own product line, its own formulary, and its own patented technology, as well as the trademarks on its name. And our goal is to not just continue to provide that and expand it to other markets, but to also look at the CBD and cannabis infusion of those products and give consumers and patients a real choice. Mm-hmm. And this is what it's all about, is giving them a choice, unlocking them from big pharma, letting them know that there are alternatives out there. And by the way, Mr. or Mrs. Patient, you can manage it yourself and you can see your own information, and we're going to educate you so you can interpret what it means. And those things that are easy to do day to day, you won't have to go to the doctor. And that's what we're trying to do, and give these individuals a way that they can continue to maintain their health, and they can continue to tie in with their primary doctor back at their rural community, because we're going to put the equipment right in the primary doctor's office. Mm-hmm. This is where we start deviating from what the teledocs of the world are. we are going to work with the doctor hand in hand to keep the continuum of care and make sure the medical record isn't fractured or broken, and that everybody's in the loop to help the individual with their care, versus a cold call, you calling in, getting a doc, telling him your symptoms, getting you a prescription or whatever, and hanging up the phone and you're done.
Mm-hmm.
That's not our model.
You got the better model for better health care. You know, not only the doctor, but they got the nurses can go ahead and they can look, and if they see any irregularity, bring the doctor in. You can see more patients in less time. And that seems to be the key, and give better quality care. And like you said, nip it in the bud. He can see symptoms. You can see that. I mean, you can tell just by heartbeat, blood pressure, breathing irregularities. There's so many ways that say, listen, something's not right over here.
And what happens if they need to see a specialist? What if the doctor discovers they need to see a cardiologist?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that cardiologist may be 50 to 100 miles away, or they can call MIHI, who has a stable of specialists, and say, can we schedule a specialty encounter with a cardiologist? Now, the teledocs are on demand. We're near demand, because specialty markets don't work on demand.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You're not going to have cardiologists just sitting around. They're too important. There's not that many of them, just like dermatologists and other specialties. Mm-hmm. So we have what we call near demand. So we would do it just like you would in a normal environment that you're used to. You'd pick up the phone, call our appointments center. You schedule your appointment that everybody agrees, and then then you just come right back to your local office to have the encounter. So you're in a area that you're familiar with. You're with a doctor you know and like. The doctor is there to support you along with the specialist that's doing the telemedicine encounter. And guess what? The doctor can make revenue. It increases his practice revenue, as well as supply a service that he can't supply today.
That's true. So, after all, most of these guys, you got to remember something about the medical business. It is a business. They got student loans to pay. They have overhead to pay. They got to make money somehow, and I can understand it. You could see more patients and give better care if you could touch them, if you could see them. And sometimes people go once a year, and sometimes that's not enough.
That's right. And what you're describing is the difference between symptom-based care and evidence-based care.
Mm-hmm.
Symptom-based is where you have a teledoc-type encounter where you share with the doctor kind of how you feel, without any real facts. I feel like I got a headache. I feel hot. My throat's scratchy. My eyes are watering. And now what we're doing is we're actually putting equipment in the rural physician's office so we can support more of an evidence-based environment where we're actually having devices that take temperature, take heartbeat, have a camera look in the eye, down the throat, things like that, so we can actually see in real time, hear in real time, and we can make a proper diagnosis based on the true evidence, not just what you feel or think. Big difference.
Truly 21st century medicine, brought to you by Medical Innovations. Jake, I'm going to bring you back on the show again. I mean, I appreciate this. MIHI is the symbol, all right, and bringing us up to snuff. Let us know next time how you make out with the roll-up of the nutraceutical business, which I think is going to be phenomenal for you. I mean, one hand washes the other, and together they'll wash the face.
Yes.
And the growth of...
I'd love to come back, Mick.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you got a lot to say. And like I said earlier, the resistance you meet at the beginning disappears once everybody gets accustomed to using it. And unlike some of the others out there that try it and that are always consistently in the red, you seem to be learning from their mistakes and not implementing the same mistakes that they did. So MIHI is a good deal as far as it goes when it comes to management. And I got to say thank you for coming on the show, Jake. We'll catch you again over there. Okay, and I'm looking forward to seeing just what happens with MIHI.
Well, keep your eye on it, and love to come back. And Mick, I want to thank you very much for the time today, and anything I can do to help. We certainly have a lot more to speak about.
No doubt,
we're not shy.
We could do a couple of shows on this. I'll bring you back in about a month. We'll see just how we're doing. Jake Sanchez, CEO of Medical Innovations Holdings. I mean, he has a lot to say, about resistance and stuff like that. Once that resistance is gone, I mean, who wouldn't want to go to a doctor once every 90 days without having to wait there? I mean, if you have a cold or something, you could diagnose it. They call it symptoms. That's why they call it symptoms. You're not alone. They can tell when something's right and not right. And when you have elderly parents or you just can't get there, you're in a rural area, to have the doctor come into your home is such a hassle because he's got to drive 80 miles. He's not going to do it. He's too busy for that. But instantaneously to see you online is just phenomenal. I tell you, the world is passing us by. Something that's not passing us by is RP Summit. RPSummit.com. I mean, let's face it. If you're in the business of being in the business, you're working on your business, you're not working in it. RP Summit can do all that for you. And what they do, and I've worked with them before. They really isolate your company and drive traffic. I don't care if you're a pizzeria. And let's face it, you got your little pizza place. You got 100 steady customers. They come in once a month. Well, if they have to come in twice a month, guess what? You just doubled your business. It makes common sense. And RP Summit is an expert at that. They're up in New Jersey, the Tri-County area. They just expanded here to South Florida, and they're going nationwide. They know exactly what they're doing. They isolate your target, and they turn it into dollars. They bring people to your business. And that's the whole key today. And I don't talk about, 500 people visited my website. Yeah, what'd they spend? Did they spend anything? No, they didn't spend a dime, so who needs them? What they do is they take people and they spend money, and you see immediate results. They did it up north in the auto business over and over again. And once you grab them, once you lock on to RP Summit and RPSummit.com, you're not going to get rid of them because you're going to see the results within a week or two. And you're going to say, listen, I went from doing $12 a week and now I'm doing $500 a week. You're going to get rid of them? Of course not. You're going to keep them forever. RPSummit.com. Log on right now. We're going to go to a break, and I'll come back in a minute. I'm the Mixter. You're on 1470. All right, we're wrapping it up here in Fort Lauderdale on a wet Wednesday. I want to thank everybody. I want to thank Bruce Barren for coming on with potnetwork.com. A tremendous interview. I'll tell you what, he's well traveled. And of course, Jake Sanchez from Medical Innovations, a terrific job. I want to thank Joe behind the glass, everybody out there, Freddie Santori and his crowd at AMP2 TV, Jody Mybound under the tutorship. Terrific producer, Duff Lindsay. He does a great job with everything. Gotta love the Duff. He's just phenomenal. Okay, and Bob Moranci running things over here. Just so many good people working here at Beasley. I'm so proud of all of them. I want to thank my sponsors, RP Summit, for coming on, rpsummit.com. Looking forward to working with the great Tom Kozlowski out of Jersey, well-known and throughout the circles. And, Joe, I got to say one thing. It's going to be wet out there for the next couple of days. Sorry for you people who came here on vacation. Not good. But this is the Mixter, Mick Bazzuly. You can catch us on Facebook and on YouTube. Log in the Mick Bazzuly Show and see this show in its entirety. Okay, tomorrow. It should be there in maybe a matter of minutes. We'll see how fast they get it up. Okay, we'll catch you next time. Okay, have a great week. Be safe and peace, brother.
Thanks for listening to the Mick Bazzuly Show, brought to you by RP Summit, putting money in businesses' pockets for 20 years. Visit rpsummit.com and tune in again next time for the